early years education particularly. It is not a job.
We don't have an issue with getting educators through the door. We have an issue about keeping educators here.
We have to sometimes remove our egos. Sometimes we arrive in that space of, I'm the leader, I'm the manager.
Every time we talk about educators losing that connection to their work, the answer almost always automatically comes back to go back to your why, find your why. And that phrase has been used so much that for a lot of people, it stopped having any meaning at all.
Early years educators, we're struggling. Our industry is struggling.
There's a question that I think most of us in the early years have sat with at some point in our careers. And it's probably one of the simplest questions that we could ask, but also one of the hardest to honestly answer. Why am I doing this? I'm Dana Al Qinneh, your host, and this is the Early Years podcast by Parent App. The Early Years Academy was built to be your village in the early years. If I can be blunt, the early years sector is not fine right now. We're seeing educators struggle. Some are leaving the profession. Some centers are struggling to stay afloat. Some have even closed. There's also a general sense that the work is becoming harder to sustain and panic from the ones that are actually staying and doing the heavy lifting. I wanted to be clear, these are not new struggles. We've always carried a lot, but right now people are feeling the weight of it more than they ever have. There's an assumption that we often hear. It's one that I think really misses the mark, but it's held by so many, so it's worth talking about, which is that it's not that bad. The educators have just lost their sense of purpose. And then there's this expectation that you just have to work harder or keep going. And if you did, you could earn or find your purpose again, almost as if we could force it back into existence. But we know that's not how purpose works. You can't grind your way back into it. You can't schedule it into a team meeting. So we know that our why doesn't come from looking ahead at what we want to achieve. That's aspiration, that's goals. So you can't work your way through or to it. But where it does come from is by looking back at the experiences that shaped you, maybe reflecting back on moments that stayed with you the most or resonated with you. That's where you get your why. And that's exactly where I want to start with today, with somebody I'm really glad to have in this space. Melonie Karriem is an early years educator, a center manager, and founder of Let's Talk Early Years podcast. She's also a resident guest here on the Early Years Academy podcast. We're partnering with Melonie to do something the sector genuinely needs, which is to amplify the voices that are actually living this work. So you'll be hearing from her across episodes, and we're really excited about this. Welcome, Melonie.
Dana, how exciting is this? We're finally here doing the work we've been talking about for so long. So many conversations later, and now we're live. Yeah. Congratulations, Dana, on the Early Years Academy, to you and to the entire parent team. For me, it's a wonderful privilege to play a small part of just this part of the extensive offering you have.
Thank you so much, Melonie. Before we get into everything that you've also built, which is really impressive and something we really admire at Parent App, I wanted to start with something or somewhere personal, because I think you've probably had moments where your why felt completely clear and probably moments where it didn't. Was there ever a point where purpose went quiet for you? How does one find their way? I mean, if we talk about the Let's Talk Early Years in itself and what you've accomplished with that, I think there's so much learning that we could have.
That's such a profound question, Dana. I want to iterate what you started out with saying, is that educators right now, and particularly early years educators, we're struggling. Our industry is struggling. And it's not just the current geopolitical situation in the GCC and surrounding countries, but overall as a sector, if you do the research, you'll see that early years education has the highest early exit rate across the sector. So whether it
Yeah.
be in Canada, in the US, in South Africa, for every 10 teachers that we train, we retain 4 in the first 5 years. This is troubling. Yeah. So finding your why is really profound, particularly at this time, Dana. I want to start by saying also that I've always known my why. I've always revisited my why, but I've never strayed from it. It's always been at the center of who I am as a being. You know, I was one of those girls, maybe like you and many others. We were very bossy when we grew up, and we always knew that we were going to be educators, right?
Who, me?
So my career, my career started very young. I started as a young teacher, and I was very fortunate again to progress very quickly through the industry. And I became part of a national team of 38 educators who we trained principals, founders in township schools. And we created a curriculum for bringing quality improvement into those settings. So throughout my career span, which is now 30 years, and I know you wouldn't say that, right? I've always known that through the different stages, early years education was always what called my heart. So the why was always there, but I just always had to revisit that place of, why do I make this contribution? What is it that I want to contribute? Yeah, it is divine work, Dana. It is a privilege to work in early years, but that needs to resonate with our souls.
Right. Okay. Melonie, can I take you back? You said something. For every 10 educators that enter the field, how many are exiting?
For every 10, we retain 4. So less than half.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, for every 10 educators that we bring into the field, we're retaining 4. So, I mean, we don't have an issue with getting educators through the door. We have an issue of keeping educators here. And I remember being a new early years educator, doing everything right, going to professional development sessions, building genuine relationships with family and children, learning constantly, changing my classroom all the time, seeking help, advice, reading all the books. But what I noticed very early on was that the harder I worked, the more I was worked, with the same compensation, the same conditions, and very little acknowledgement. There was a time.
You know what, Dana? I want to say to you, you're spot on. It's not a recruitment problem. It's not a retention problem.
No.
It's an identity problem.
Yeah.
It's a meaning problem.
Right. I was going to say, there was a time, Melonie, I spent an entire day carrying a child who would completely fall apart the moment I put them down. Not metaphorically, like I was physically carrying this child, holding them, holding their hand for hours. And when I finally reached out and said, I need support, this isn't sustainable, I was told, we believe in you, you can do it. And that sounds kind, except it wasn't meant as kindness. It was meant as dismissal, and my body knew it. It was almost as if I was being told that my struggle was evidence of my strength, and that asking for help was not something I needed to do, even though I knew I needed the help, and that overworking would maybe be the answer, um, to being overworked. Because if you think about it, that's what I was being told, right? Like I needed to work harder, and that was the answer to me being overworked. And that's gaslighting, and it took me a really long time to name it that way, but that's what it was. And I think that's where a lot of educators are sitting right now, and still showing up, still being warm and present and intentional with the children, but then internally something's gone quiet. You said that it's the inner work, right? And that's
Yeah.
that's why the story resonated. Um,
Yeah. I
the inner
think
connection.
after we've done our training, or when we're still new in the profession, we're not necessarily prepared for the reality of what the on-site work actually
Yeah,
entails. Yeah.
right.
And at the same time, I want to say to you, in defense of every single leader, nursery
Yeah,
leader,
yeah,
we're expecting you to arrive with those tools.
right.
So between your expectation of what your teaching career is going to look like and
Yeah,
my expectation as a leader for you to come in and
right.
deliver the work that I'm paying you for, there's a
Yeah,
disconnect. And you're right. I might not see it as gaslighting you or
right.
not giving you the tools necessarily to operate at your full capacity, but I'm also just doing my job, right?
Yeah,
So
right.
there's that space, Dana,
Yeah.
of relationship,
Yes.
that space of safety. And in your extensive practice, you know about feeling safe enough to broker that conversation about, I don't feel equipped
Right.
to articulate or to execute what you're expecting. Yeah,
Right.
you know that space. It's about
Yeah.
relationship.
But I love how you flip that coin, because there are two sides, right? There's an educator's expectation, and there's the leader's expectation. And what I wanted to say is there's a distinction between leaders who inspire and leaders who, for a lack of better word, manipulate. The same distinction lives inside of us too. There's a version of us as educators that stay in the work, stay in this work, um, because we feel inspired, and it comes from somewhere real, and that strong belief about what matters. And then there's a version of us that's just on inertia, right? Like we're just showing up because we haven't stopped yet. But if somebody gave us a reason to stop, well, we'd easily stop, right? And
Yeah.
only one of those could sustain or could endure. Um, you know, um, a sector like ours, which, let's be honest, is really tough, as we mentioned.
Yeah. I
This,
think as leaders also, Dana, we have to sometimes remove our egos.
yeah,
Sometimes we arrive in that space of, I'm the leader, I'm the manager, I'm the
I
person
know,
in charge. I
I know.
know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Sometimes we need to move from that space and tap into our better selves, as you were saying, and view
yeah,
yourself perhaps as, am I a tugboat, always pulling people along for us to arrive at our
right.
destination? Or am I, like you say, that inspirational leader, the
Yeah,
lighthouse?
yes,
Are people drawn to me? Am I visible? Am I grounded? Am I the kind of leader that creates that space
yeah,
for my team to come and stay with me, come and sit with me, come and learn from me? And
yeah,
sometimes, most times, you do know better as the leader, right? But it's to
yeah,
create that relationship where people can actually feel safe to tap
right,
into your knowledge.
right,
Yeah.
right. And
I
that,
think for many years, Dana,
yeah,
I'll speak just plainly. This is you and me.
yeah,
For many, many years, I couldn't cross that divide between what is professional and what is relational.
Yeah.
And it has stood me many times in a disposition because I always wanted to show up as a professional. I wanted to do the right thing at the expense of relationships. So I would clearly create this barrier between my team and myself. You execute, I would direct, I would train you. Oh, I can train you, Dana. I can train you until the cows come home. But that training needs to translate into inspiration for you to go and execute.
Right.
Yeah. So I think that's where I put my hand up. I say where many of us as leaders, we lose that ability to connect with our teams and thereby inspire them. And so all the time we're looking to motivate people. Can we send you for a training? Can we buy a pizza on Friday? Can we, have a team building? But that's motivation. That's extrinsic.
Yeah.
What we want are team members who sustain themselves, who see us as mentors, as safe places, as perhaps, one source of knowledge that they can rely on, but that they can access.
Yeah. Leaders that respect our autonomy, leaders that see us, see our struggles, that see us holding a child for 5 hours of the day, and don't just pat you on the back and say you can do it, but say let's brainstorm some solutions. Let's see what we can do. Every time we talk about educators losing that connection to their work, the answer almost always automatically comes back to go back to your why, find your why. And that phrase has been used so much that for a lot of people, it stopped having any meaning at all. It's, for me, I speak from personal experience, it was almost on every induction deck, slide deck, for example. As an educator who was already depleted, sometimes carrying more than I should have been, being told to find my why felt like I was being asked to add yet another thing to my paramount plate that actually had no more room for anything else, with no help or guidance on how to do it. Yes, it sounds meaningful. Go find your why, but it's not actionable. So the why is not something you invent, right? It's not an exercise you can complete and then you can, you have it. The why, I think, is what you said, Melonie. It's something you discovered, right? It's you discovered by going back to a specific moment in your life, a specific something that made you who you are. It could also be a story that lit you up or broke you, even if broke you, right? Because a lot of people find their why through situations that break them. So our whys already exist. We know that. The hard work is finding it. But what does that actually look like for an educator who's already running on empty? How do you go looking for meaning when you barely have energy or any energy left to get through your day?
I think you hit it on the head there, Dana, when you're saying that I need to look to self. When I'm at that point where I'm already burnt out, it's almost too late already. When I'm already looking at options to exit the industry, when I'm looking at exiting and going into the private sector, it's almost too late already. So we need to take responsibility as adults. I find myself many times as a leader out of frustration saying to my new teachers, I'm not your mother. I'm not your mother. You're a trained professional. There is an expectation of you. You need to come to that place and I can meet you at the place. So the first place, I think, our educators, whether they're new, whether they're old, whether they've been in the system for however long, is to understand that teaching is not a job.
Yeah.
Early years education, particularly, it is not
Yeah.
a job, Dana. It was never
Right.
meant to be experienced as a job alone. It is a professional calling. And when we start treating it as only employment, we lose the meaning that sustains people through the difficult seasons. Yeah?
Right. Right. I mean, right, because the why is not usually something, again, we say it's not something that you discover. It surfaces when you feel safe enough to actually say what it is. I love how you mentioned that when you're already at that breaking point, that's not the time for you to do the discovery work. And the thing that I always keep in my head is that you don't learn to swim when you're drowning. You can't learn to swim when you're drowning, right? And similarly, you can't really find your why when you're in that moment where you're questioning what it is that you're doing in that moment, or you've reached a point of burnout where you don't have that mental capacity to reflect. I wanted to go back to the comment you made about safety, because in trauma informed practice, we talk about felt safety and the idea that real reflection only happens when the nervous system is settled enough to go there. So you can't ask somebody to connect to their purpose when they're in survival mode, which is what you said. And they're going to give you the answer they think you want. It's not going to touch on anything real. It's just, to kind of end the conversation. But deeper than that, why only comes out in trusting environments. So when people feel they're not going to be judged for what they say, and without it, you're not going to have a purposeful conversation. You're going to probably have somebody who's, again, going to try to give you a compliance answer. So safety is really important, which brings me back to the hard question. How do you create that for your team? How do you ensure that it's your culture?
Dana, I think once again, everything you're saying to me is just resonating with my soul, because psychological safety it's not just essential for teams. It's the thing that connects our soul in the purposeful work that we do. So strong early years cultures hold the psychological safety as well as the professionalism. So the strong early years culture is, again, relationships that matter, that are intentional, and standards that are intentional and that matter to the team. And for those standards, that professional standard to exist in the team, it's dependent on the relationships. And the relationships are also dependent on us maintaining those professional standards. So as much as you're speaking about the team feeling psychologically safe, I'm going to again speak for the manager. Does she feel psychologically safe? Does she feel that she can open up her heart, her knowledge, her skill, her experience to you as a team and not be judged and be received for the place that she's at? So at the heart of what I'm saying, Dana, is for us to build intentional teams through authentic relationships. It's the thing I've learned over 30 years, Dana. I can honestly say, I've only really, really put my heart into it probably in the last 10 years, where I felt safe within myself to open up and be vulnerable with my teams and say, actually, I don't know, but somebody on our team might know. So again, when I take the ego away from I am the tugboat to I'm going to be the lighthouse, I am going to be here, I'm going to be steady guiding you to the place of home and safety. Come when you need me, and I want to be able to come to you when I need you. And you were speaking about respecting the team. You know, you recruited these people for their expertise.
Yes.
You know, you've brought them on their team. You've perused millions of CVs, and here this person is on your team, but we're not tapping into all those things that we looked for on their CVs, their knowledge, their skills. So again, as a leader, I need to know that as much as I'm continually training my team, encouraging them to do their CPDs, go read a book, go listen to the Let's Talk Earliest podcast, go visit the Earliest Academy. As much as I'm doing that, I need to also create that relationship that can sustain the learning exchange between the leader and the team.
And I think this is a beautiful time in our conversation, Melonie, where can we talk about pizza Fridays? Can we talk about the appreciation certificates? Can we talk about the mandatory team building events where staff members aren't asked if this work, off hours, aren't asked if this works for them, because those things aren't wrong, right? I mean, I think I've enjoyed my fair share of Pizza Fridays and my fair share of certificates. I know I've kept them, but no educator has ever cried between their classes because there was no pizza in the staff room, or because they didn't get a certificate that day, or because you didn't plan a team building event. No educator that I know has, but I know plenty that have because they didn't feel safe. I know plenty that have because they didn't feel heard, and plenty that have because they don't get a say. They just don't get a say. This is how it is. You do it. If you don't like it, great, I'll find somebody else. And
I agree with you, Dana. Again, it leads to identity fatigue, right? Yeah. That what I envisioned for myself joining an earliest team, and in the UAE particularly, I think in Canada, from your experience as well, teachers have the choice of beautiful settings, and they can choose whether they want to join those settings or not. They're spoiled for choice in terms of employment opportunities. So when I enter the workforce, I have this identity that I've created. My expectation is there. So when those good educators join us, and this is their only reward, those Pizza Fridays and those certificates, you mean? Dana, we're falling hopelessly short of meeting them in that place of optimism and energy and that willingness to contribute, meaningfully to the industry. Yeah. We fall hopelessly short. Those things are surface level. It should not be part of my plan. My plan should be, it starts with that induction, that I get to know each person. I take my interview notes and I highlight, why am I appointing Dana on my team? What are her strong suits? And then when I bring her in for induction, that I actually say that to her, and clearly guide her and say, Dana, I've employed you because this is your strong suit. I'd like to see you execute this on our team. And then I need to give Dana the tools and the freedom to execute on that, and be, as the intuitive leader, available to when she needs me, and even when she's not able to clearly articulate. As a leader, I'm always present. I don't know any nursery manager who doesn't go home as tired, as dirty as the rest of our teachers. We're always on the ground, we're always around, we're always in the classes, so I can be available, even just as an emotional support.
Right.
I hope that
Absolutely.
answers your question. I speak so passionately, Dana. You have to stop me.
100%. No, 100%. I heard you, there's a difference between incentive and inspiration. Incentive is short term, right? You're happy to see the pizza, but then, pizza can't change your belief. It can't, it's not going to be what retains, your best educators or educators in general. You don't need to keep educators with perks, right? You have to keep them by giving them a reason to believe that they are doing something that matters, that you're doing something to build the kind of environment where their belief and their why can survive. On the parent app, we used to have this group where we'd made it just for educators, and we called it Thought of You. So anytime there was anything that we saw that made us think, so thought of you, think of another teacher, we would post on that group, and it was just a lovely way to truly see our educators. So some educators could be really close with one another, and as a leader, I maybe don't know what their likes and their interests are, but they know. And when they share on the group, things that made them think of another educator, that gives me insight into the whole person that I have at work. And I love that group. It was just one of my favorite things to open up and just see different reasons why different educators think of one another. And it's so simple to do. You can do it on the parent app. You can do it on WhatsApp. It's telling them, I see you, for who you are. And it creates an environment where we all see one another. We all appreciate one another. And that's
the thing you're speaking about is relationships, right?
Yeah.
You're speaking about building a culture where people feel safe to connect, people feel safe to affirm one another. And this is something you and I speak of very often. We speak about why we don't affirm people comes from a place of fear, right? So if I, as the leader, encourage that culture of safety, my team have the freedom to affirm one another.
Yeah. So Melonie, psychological safety is the starting point, right? But we don't always get to build it from the ground up, right? Like the ideal version is that you arrive, you set the culture, you model the behavior, safety grows there. It's great, right? You exist in a vacuum, but that's not most people's reality. Most leaders inherit something, right? I know when I stepped into a leadership role, I had the privilege of being inherited a system and a flow and a team that already had experiences before I walked in, and dynamics, right? And trust and trust issues, maybe. Then the work that I had to do was not building safety; it was rebuilding it. And that's a completely different thing. You're asking people to extend something, that trust that they've already had taken away from them. And it requires a different kind of patience and a different kind of honesty. So a leader's job is to create an environment where people feel safe enough to do their best. That's great. What's harder to name is, what does that look like after the environment's already been destroyed? Where do you start?
I think this is probably the place where leaders start feeling that place of, why am I here? Yeah, this is that. Dana, I like that we're able to empathize with both the educators and the leaders in this discussion. And both you and I can see that perspective because we've been in both roles, right? And I think that place when the leader, for want of a better word, has to rectify a toxic culture, it becomes hard, particularly if that leader doesn't have a support base, of other leaders. Because leadership, particularly in early years, is polarizing. It's a very lonely road, very lonely, because it's only you and your team in the organization. Very little nurseries that have a deputy or an owner who is on site. There's very, very little time for us in the day to connect with other leaders, and go and speak with them about the challenges we have. The thing I found that has stood me in good stead as a leader is, again, not just the looking to self, but looking outside of who is my circle, who is my safe space. Because the people on my team cannot hold space for me in that instance, and I cannot expect it of them. This is the place of understanding my professional role as the leader of the team. So I cannot look to them. I need to look outside and go and find my circle. Yeah. I need to also be continually, like I'm encouraging my team, I need to be upskilling, whether it be professionally, whether it be personally. Do some introspection. Like you're saying, I'm saying to my team, go find your why. Leader, go find your why. Go revisit that place of inspiration. Go revisit your professional language. Go protect your developmental practice. Go create for yourself a place of reflection. And then you model purpose visibly.
Right. And hang on to your why, right? So I mean, I know we just went full circle.
You revisit that why, Dana. Like I said to you, for me, the success of my career and why I've stayed for 30 years is because I just keep revisiting that why. And it excites me. It excites me every day. I've created my podcast out of that place, of I just want to bring all these people together. It's so exciting. I meet them. I learn so many things. I want my other friends to meet these people because they know so much and they can add so much to our industry. So just revisiting, And Dana, the thing I want to share with you, it is probably controversial. I have led many teams, and I always say to my team, stay as long as you need to. And when it's time to grow from here, I don't say go from here. Please know, I send you out with love.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, I want my team to know while you're here, I want to grow with you. I want to grow you. I want to see you succeed. And if this little nursery can't sustain everything that's inside you, grow to another place, whether it be another nursery, whether it be moving into another school, anything else related to what stirs your passion. Grow from this place.
I love that. That takes me back to the times where I've questioned whether or not I wanted to continue in early years. And every single time it was because I felt like I hit a glass ceiling, Melonie. And, every single time, I was grateful to have a leader who removed that ceiling for me. But that's what it takes. It takes saying to your staff members, I want you to grow. There's no limits to where you could grow. I'm not going to keep you here. This is not a box or a container. I wanted to go back to something else that you said, because Simon Sinek, actually, the one who wrote Finding Your Why, he actually argues that your why never changes. And what I think he means by that is the belief at the core, at the core of you never changes. Even as you shape how you want to meet that why, that changes, right? I mean, you've done it in early years, you've done it in a podcast, that's changed, but the core of your why, that doesn't change. You know, you do not claim your why once at the beginning and you carry it unchanged forever. You come back to it, you look at it from where you are now with who you've become, and you choose it again. So I came into early years because of my children, and I always share that with everybody. I wanted to understand this world of early years. I wanted to understand, you know, what I should do, what works, how I can best support them. That's what brought me in. But it's not what's kept me. You know, what's carried me forward was the belief that what happens in these 5 years shape everything that comes after. And once you see that clearly, it's really hard to unsee it. But at the heart of both those things, so my children and understanding early years are very, very important, it's just different versions of the same thing. And I think that's what he meant by your why never changes. The belief at the core doesn't, but you come back to it and the belief sharpens and it gets more specific and it becomes more yours. And I think that's what our sector needs right now. It's not us holding on or surviving. It's educators who have looked at the full picture and decided again and again this is where they want to be for reasons that serve them now.
I agree, Dana. Your career is not separate from who you are. It is not something you just go to do. Your career is who you are.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that because you're an early years educator or a teacher or a professor or a lecturer, that this is the value that we attribute to you. But this is the value that you attribute to yourself, because you see the value in the contribution you make to society, in the contribution you make to the industry as a whole. I think when we take that privilege as our why and we sit with that and we let that settle in our soul, that actually I'm not here for the manager, for the team members. I'm here to live out my purpose. What is my purpose? What is my why?
Right. Right. I mean, we're asking educators to give children the most important thing a human being can offer, which is safety, presence, you know, the experience of being known, of being seen. And we're asking them to do that without always asking whether they themselves feel those things, without checking if they feel safe and rooted enough to offer those things. I'm a firm believer that you can't give what you don't have, right?
Yeah.
So I also believe that why is about contribution. So it's about what you give to the people around you by being who you are. And in that early years, that contribution flows through our educators. So everything we hope for children, the regulation, the curiosity, sense of belonging, the academics, whatever it may be, it runs through the educator first. And the educator has to run on meaning. So I hope if anybody listening takes one thing out of today's talk is that tend to yours, tend to your meaning. Melonie, I want to thank you genuinely for this conversation. Honestly, if I had to summarize my takeaways, I wouldn't be able to. I mean, this is just profound, and there's a lot of things I think I'm going to have to think over and revisit. But I really appreciated having you on here with us.
Dana, it's been my privilege. It's been my absolute pleasure. You know, Ralph Waldo Emerson says something really profound. He says, wait, I need to get it right. It says, to know even one life has breathed easier because you have lived. This is to have succeeded. If we as educators have this at the core of our daily practice, to know that I've impacted one life positively, we've succeeded, Anna. We've lived a day of success, and we live to fight another day.
Exactly. I wanted to end with something. So we talk a lot about what educators owe the sector, the commitment, their presence, all of it that we mentioned today, what they bring into the room. But we talked far less about what the sector owes them. At Parent App, the conversation that shapes everything that we build starts with a single question. Does this serve the educator? Not the administrator, not just the director, not just the person in the room with children, but the whole ecosystem. Because we believe that, and this is the belief of the whole company actually, and what it was built on, is that when educators are genuinely supported, everything downstream of that is better. Better environments, better relationship, better outcomes for children. The Early Years Academy actually exists because of that belief, not as a product, not as a one-time course that you visit, but as a long-term commitment with our educators to say that we're not just here to help you manage data or streamline your work, but we're here because we believe that this is the most important work that you can do. We believe in that, and we believe that the people doing it deserve all the support that they can get. All of Melonie's details are in the show notes. Follow her, reach out to her, tell her this episode has found you. And to everyone listening, if this conversation sparked something, share it with somebody in your team who needs to hear it. Sometimes the most powerful things that we can say is, I found this and I thought of you. From everyone at Parent App, the Early Years Academy, my Parent App, and the Early Years Podcast, thank you so much and take care.